The binary sons of Xylos Prime were unforgiving, beating down on the rusted corrugated metal of the colony's outer rim. In the sweltering heat of Sector 4, the air smelled of ozone, burnt engine grease, and the faint, sweet rot of alien vegetation. Ronin wiped a streak of grime from his forehead with the back of a gloved hand. He was a man etched by time and gravity. Broad-shouldered, scarred, with graying stubble that spoke of a life left behind on Earth decades ago. Here, he was just the human, the tinkerer, the one who could fix anything that rattled, hummed, or leaked. His workshop was a cathedral of junk. Stacks of salvaged hyperdrive cores sat next to antique combustion engines. To the locals, it was trash. To Ronin, it was possibility. "You are frowning again, Ronin." The voice was like a wind chime, soft, melodic, and startlingly innocent in this rough part of a town. Ronin didn't look up from the micro-welder he was nursing. "I'm not frowning, kid. I'm focusing. There's a difference." He turned the dial on his magnification goggles. Sitting on a crate near the open bay door was Lyra. She was small, even for a Xylian child, with skin the color of twilight clouds, a soft iridescent blue that pulsed faintly with her heartbeat. But it was her eyes that drew the most attention. They were large, milky white, and completely clouded over. Lyra was blind, a genetic defect common in the lower castes, or so Ronin assumed. She navigated the world by sound and the subtle shifts in air pressure, a skill her species, the Xylians, were naturally gifted at. But on a busy industrial world, sound wasn't enough. "Is it ready?" she asked, her long pointed ears twitching toward the hum of the welder. Ronin sighed, the sound heavy in his chest. "I told you, Lyra, it's complicated. Your people's neural pathways are bioelectric. Humans use chemical synapses. Bridging the two is like trying to plug a toaster into a lightning bolt. My mother says humans exaggerate to make themselves feel important." Lyra teased, swinging her legs. Ronin chuckled, a dry, raspy sound. "Your mother sounds like a wise woman. Where is she today?" "Working," Lyra said, her voice dipping slightly. "Always working." Ronin felt a pang of sympathy. He never asked about her family. In the Outer Rim, questions were dangerous. He just knew she appeared 3 months ago, lonely and curious, fascinated by the heavy way the human moved and the heat he radiated. "Come here," Ronin grunted, setting down the welder. "Let's test the fit." Lyra hopped off the crate and navigated the cluttered floor with frightening speed. She stopped inches from him. Ronin picked up the device. It wasn't pretty. It was a visor constructed from the optical sensors of a decommissioned mining drone. Rewired through a haptic feedback collar he'd salvaged from an EarthGov flight suit. "Hold still," he murmured. He placed the visor over her eyes. It was bulky against her delicate features. He fastened the collar around her neck. "Okay," Ronin said, his voice serious. "This isn't going to give you sight like you imagine. No colors, no sharp details. It takes sonar and thermal readings and translates them into vibrations against your skin and faint electrical impulses to your temples. Your brain has to learn to feel the picture." "Turn it on," she whispered. Ronin flipped the switch. A low hum filled the room. Lyra gasped. Her hands flew up, hovering near her face. She turned her head left, then right. "It's loud," she said, wincing, "but I feel shapes." "Ronin!" She reached out. Her small, cool hand found his forearm with zero hesitation. She didn't grope for it. She went straight to it. "You are warm," she said, a smile breaking across her face that was so bright it made Ronin's chest ache. "And you are big, like a mountain." Ronin swallowed the lump in his throat. "Yeah, well, don't tell anyone. Ruins my scary reputation." "I can see the table," Lyra cried out, spinning around. "I can see the doorway. It's like the world is singing to me in shapes." She spent the next hour exploring the workshop, touching tools she'd only heard before, laughing as the thermal sensors picked up the heat of the soldering iron from across the room. For the first time in years, Ronin felt a sense of purpose that didn't involve credits or survival. "Keep it," Ronin said as the suns began to set, casting long double shadows across the floor. "But keep it hidden. People around here steal anything that glows." Lyra paused at the door, her hand clutching the bulky visor. "Thank you, Ronin. You fixed me." "You weren't broken, kid," Ronin replied gruffly, turning back to his workbench. "Just missing a part. Go home." She vanished into the twilight, and Ronin was left alone with the silence, unaware that he had just set a sequence of events in motion that would shake the very foundations of the colony. 3 days passed. Lyra didn't return. Ronin tried to ignore the gnawing worry in his gut. He told himself she was busy, or maybe the battery died, and she was too shy to ask for a recharge. But on the 4th day, the atmosphere in Sector 4 changed. The usual cacophony of street vendors and hover trams fell silent. Ronin was under the chassis of a heavy lifter when he felt the ground vibrate. Rhythmic heavy, unmistakable marching. He slid out from under the vehicle, wiping grease from his hands with a rag. He stood up just as the light from his bay door was blocked. 4 figures stood there. They weren't local police. They weren't even colonial militia. They were Praetorian Guard. Towering 7 feet tall, clad in armor made of shifting obsidian plates that seemed to absorb the light. They were the elite enforcers of the high noble houses. They carried energized polearms that crackled with violet energy. Their faces were hidden behind sleek, faceless helmets. Ronin didn't reach for the shotgun taped under his workbench. Against 4 Praetorians, he'd be dead before his finger touched the trigger. He raised his hands slowly, palms open. "Can I help you, gentlemen?" Ronin asked, keeping his voice steady. "If this is about the zoning tax, I mailed the credits yesterday." The lead guard stepped forward. The obsidian plates hissed as they moved. "You are the human known as Ronin?" "That's me. You are the creator of this device." The guard held up a familiar object, the visor. It looked battered, the casing cracked. Ronin's blood ran cold. "Lyra." "I built it," Ronin said, his voice dropping an octave, losing its casual edge. "Where is the girl? Is she hurt?" "You will come with us," the guard commanded. It wasn't a request. "I asked you a question," Ronin growled, taking a step forward. "Is the kid okay?" The guard moved with a speed that defied physics. In a blink, the energy tip of the polearm was an inch from Ronin's throat. The heat coming off it singed his beard hairs. "Your compliance is mandatory. Your survival is optional. Choose!" Ronin stared at the faceless helmet. He calculated the odds. 0. "Fine," Ronin said, lowering his hands. "Let's go." They didn't cuff him. They simply surrounded him, a walking prison of black armor, and marched him out of the slums. They led him to a sleek, waiting transport that looked like a silver needle. As they lifted off, leaving the grime of Sector 4 behind, Ronin looked down at the shrinking city. He wasn't thinking about his life. He was thinking about a little girl who needed to see the world, and what these armored monsters had done to her. The transport didn't go to the prison complex. It ascended toward the high spire, the floating citadel above the clouds where the Xylian nobility lived in an atmosphere of pure oxygen and filtered light. The contrast was jarring. Ronin, in his oil-stained jumpsuit and heavy combat boots, was marched through halls of crystalline glass and polished marble. Ethereal music played from nowhere. The air smelled of jasmine and ozone. They reached a massive set of double doors guarded by 2 more Praetorians. The doors swung open silently. The chamber beyond was a throne room, but it looked more like an observatory. The walls were transparent, revealing the starry void of space above. In the center of the room sat a high chair suspended on a gravity field. On the throne sat Lord Valerius. Ronin knew the face from the holovids. Valerius was the patriarch of House Ethelgard, one of the ruling families of the sector. His skin was a deep royal indigo, and his robes flowed like liquid mercury. But Ronin's eyes snapped to the figure standing beside the throne. A woman, tall and elegant, holding the hand of a small child. Lyra. She looked terrified, shrinking against the woman's leg. She wasn't wearing the visor. "Father," the woman said, her voice tight. "This is him, the scavenger." Lord Valerius descended, hovering until he was eye level with Ronin. His eyes, violet and piercing, scanned the human with a mixture of curiosity and disdain. "So," Valerius said, his voice echoing in the vast room, "this is the primitive who dares to experiment on my granddaughter." "Granddaughter," Ronin blinked. "The kid from the slums was royalty?" "I didn't experiment on anyone," Ronin said, standing his ground. "I fixed a broken piece of tech. Then I gave it to a kid who needed it. I didn't know she was a princess. She told me her mom was working." "I was working," the woman, Lady Lyra, interjected, her eyes flashing. "Managing the planetary trade routes is work. Lyra has a habit of escaping the grounds." "Silence," Valerius commanded. He turned back to Ronin, holding up the visor. "Our finest physicians, the best bioengineers in the galaxy, said Lyra's condition was irreversible. Her optical nerves are withered, dead." He tossed the visor to Ronin. Ronin caught it instinctively. "And yet," Valerius continued, his voice trembling with suppressed emotion, She claims she could see with this garbage. It's not garbage, Ronin said, turning the device over in his hands. It's ugly, sure, but it works. Your doctors are looking for a biological cure. I didn't try to cure her. I bypassed the problem. It's engineering, not medicine. I turned sound and heat into a language her brain already understands. Show me, Valerius demanded. It's broken, Ronin noted, looking at the cracked casing. One of your goons must have stepped on it. Fix it, Valerius ordered. Here, now. I need tools. My tools! Valerius snapped his fingers. A servant rushed forward with a velvet tray. On it lay Ronin's battered tool belt, confiscated during the flight. Ronin didn't hesitate. He sat cross-legged on the polished marble floor of the throne room, ignoring the gasps of the courtiers. He pulled out a micro screwdriver and a roll of thermal tape. For 20 minutes, the only sound in the room was the click of metal and Ronin's steady breathing. Done, Ronin muttered. He stood up and looked at Lyra. Hey, kiddo, come here. Lyra hesitated, looking at her mother. Lady Lyra nodded slowly, tears welling in her eyes. Lyra ran to Ronin. He knelt, placing the visor gently over her eyes. He secured the collar. Okay, he whispered. Booting up, the hum returned. Lyra gasped. She reached out, her hands finding Ronin's face. You're still warm, she giggled. Then she turned toward the throne. She tilted her head. Grandfather, you are very shiny. Lord Valerius, the ruler of billions, the iron-fisted patriarch, fell to his knees. He reached out a trembling hand. Lyra walked to him, navigating around the floating dais perfectly, and took his hand. I can see you, she whispered. I can see your heat. It's so bright. Valerius looked up at Ronin, tears streaming down his indigo face. You, a human, with scraps of metal. We make do, Ronin said, wiping his hands on his jumpsuit. That's what humans do. We adapt. The moment of peace was shattered by an explosion. The blast doors at the far end of the chamber blew inward, sending shards of crystal flying like shrapnel. Ronin instinctively grabbed Lyra and shielded her with his body as the shockwave hit. Smoke filled the room. Through the haze, red laser fire erupted. Assassins! Lady Lyra screamed. A dozen figures in sleek silver combat armor stormed the breach. They weren't mercenaries, the insurrectionists. Secure the High Lord! A Praetorian shouted, charging forward. The engagement was brutal. The Praetorians were powerful, but they were outnumbered. The mercenaries used flashbangs and sonic disruptors, weapons designed to incapacitate the sensitive Xylian physiology. Valerius grabbed his chest, collapsing as a sonic pulse hit him. Lady Lyra fell beside him, disoriented. The mercenaries weren't here to kill. They were here to take. Grab the girl, the mercenary leader shouted. She is the leverage. Two mercenaries lunged toward Ronin and Lyra. Ronin didn't have his shotgun. He didn't have his armor. He had a bag of tools and 50 years of human stubbornness. Get behind the throne, Ronin roared at Lyra, shoving her toward cover. As the first mercenary reached for him, Ronin didn't back down. He stepped into the guard's reach. Xylians and most aliens fought with range and elegance. Humans fought with dirty kinetic physics. Ronin drove a heavy wrench into the mercenary's knee joint. Ceramics shattered. The alien howled. Ronin followed up with a stiff-arm strike to the creature's throat, collapsing its windpipe. He grabbed the falling mercenary's sidearm, a plasma pistol, and rolled behind a marble pillar. Human! The mercenary leader laughed, seeing Ronin. You are out of your depth. Surrender the child, and you may live to be a slave. Ronin checked the charge on the pistol. Half full. You know the thing about humans? Ronin called out, his voice echoing from behind the pillar. We come from a high-gravity death world. We break easily, yeah, but we don't know when to stay down. Ronin broke cover. He didn't fire wildly. He sprinted, sliding across the polished floor. He fired 3 shots. 2 hit mercenaries in the chest, melting their armor. The third hit the ceiling support above the leader, a massive crystal chandelier. Tons of glass and metal plummeted. The leader looked up too late. The crash shook the entire spire, but 4 more mercenaries remained, and they leveled their rifles at Ronin. He was out of cover, exposed. Goodbye, human, a mercenary sneered. Click. The lights in the room died. The emergency power had been cut by the falling chandelier. The room was plunged into absolute pitch blackness. The mercenaries panicked. I can't see. Thermal scopes are offline due to the fire. In the darkness, a small voice spoke. I can see them, Ronin. It was Lyra. Where, kid? Ronin whispered, moving silently in the dark. 2 at 10 o'clock, 1 at 2 o'clock, 1 guarding the door. The visor. It relied on sonar and ambient heat, not light. In the chaos and darkness, The blind girl was the only one who could see. "Guide me," Ronin said. "Left! Now!" Lyra called out. Ronin fired blindly to his left. A scream followed. "Duck!" Ronin dropped. A plasma bolt singed the air where his head had been. "Right! 3 steps!" Ronin lunged, swinging his heavy wrench in a wide arc. He connected with armor and bone. Another mercenary went down. For the next minute, the throne room became a horror movie for the mercenaries. They were being hunted in the dark by a demon they couldn't see, guided by the voice of a child. When the emergency lights finally flickered back on, Ronin was standing in the center of the room, breathing hard, blood dripping from a cut on his brow. All 12 mercenaries were down. He walked over to the throne where Lyra was hiding. He knelt down. "You okay, kid?" Lyra nodded, trembling, her visor still humming softly. We won?" "Yeah," Ronin said, patting her head. "We won. Good shooting, spotter." Days later, the throne room was repaired. Ronin stood before Lord Valerius again. This time, he wasn't in a jumpsuit. He was wearing a formal tunic, though he insisted on keeping his combat boots. The court was full. Nobles whispered as the Earthborn entered. "Ronin of Earth," Valerius spoke, his voice strong again. "You saved my house, you saved my heir, and you proved that vision is more than just sight." The Lord gestured. A servant brought forward a cushion. On it sat a medal made of pure starlight crystal and a data pad. "I cannot make you a noble," Valerius said with a small smile. "Our laws forbid it, but I can make you the royal artificer. You will have a laboratory. Funding resources. You can fix everything." Ronin looked at the lavish reward. Then he looked at Lyra, who was standing by her mother, waving excitedly. "I appreciate the offer, Your Highness," Ronin said, "but I'm not a palace guy. The air up here, it's too thin for me. I like the grease and the noise of the slums." Valerius looked stunned. "You refuse?" "I'm asking for a different arrangement," Ronin said. "Keep the title, keep the fancy lab. Just give me a contract. I'll maintain the city's grid. And maybe give the kid a pass to visit the shop whenever she wants. She's got a knack for engineering." Valerius looked at his granddaughter, then back at the stubborn human. He laughed, a booming sound of genuine respect. "Agreed, but know this, human. You walk under the protection of House Ethelgard. Any who touch you, answer to me." Ronin returned to his shop. The heat was still oppressive. The smell of ozone was still thick. He was back under the heavy lifter when he heard the familiar shuffling of feet. "You're late," Ronin called out, sliding out from under the chassis. Lyra stood there, flanked by 2 terrifying Praetorian Guards who were now carrying boxes of high-grade parts instead of weapons. "Grandfather said I need to upgrade the visor," Lyra beamed, hopping onto her stool. "He wants to see through walls next." Ronin grinned, picking up his welder. "Through walls, huh? That's gonna take some serious wiring. Hand me the plasma cutter." As Lyra handed him the tool, the Praetorian Guard stood silently by the door, watching the human work. They no longer looked at him with disdain. They watched with the quiet reverence reserved for a master warrior. Because on a planet of billions, it took a human with a box of scraps to show them all how to truly see. Sometimes, the most advanced technology isn't a microchip. It's the human heart refusing to give up. If you want to see what happens when the galaxy's most dangerous warlord tries to steal Ronin's blueprints, or how Lyra learns to build her first combat drone, make sure you're following the channel. The universe is big, and Ronin's just getting started.